Malcolm Jamal Warner, dead at the age of 54 on a drowning accident while he was vacationing with his family in Costa Rica.
I am tired of running for shade. And aren't you tired of being hustled and played? And aren't we all tired of crying about how hard it is to be black in America, even if it looks like we've got it made?
Has this been difficult for you?
Yeah. Because when you watch someone who you know and love, go through what he's going through.
You won't believe this. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the charming Theo from The Cosby Show, he's gone. But listen, this wasn't just some farewell. Number his final words? They weren't just goodbyes, they were a warning.
And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile.
And now that he's gone, people are finally waking up and asking the questions that should have been asked ages ago. Why didn't anyone listen? Why does it feel like every time someone speaks the truth, really speaks it, they just vanish?
But freedom has its limits, so here we are, tear-streaked and salt-stained faces. Traces of trauma and pain lace our DNA like our black pride is cut and laced with self-hate.
Was this just another tragic accident? Or is it part of something darker? Something we've all been too scared to admit? Malcolm Jamal Warner's death shook everyone. Fans, friends, even people who hadn't thought of him in years, because it didn't make sense. 54 years old, healthy, vibrant, still creating, still speaking out, and now just gone. Authorities say he drowned. A tragic accident, they claim. It happened during a family vacation in Costa Rica. Strong ocean currents near Clay's Beach in Lyman, they say. But wait.
Reports that the 54-year-old was in Costa Rica on a family vacation and accidentally drowned while swimming.
The Associated Press said beachgoers tried to save him, but by the time the Red Cross got there, he had no vital signs. They rushed him to the morgue. End of story. Or is it? Because here's the part that's got everyone on edge. Just days before his death, Malcolm left behind a message, and it didn't feel random. It felt deliberate. It felt urgent. And honestly, it felt like a man who knew something was coming. Malcolm wasn't just vacationing. He was on a mission to tell the truth.
Can you tell me the fate of the people who consciously take the bait and embrace the very traits placed upon them by their captors, who by design are inclined to keep them believing they're second rates? I'll wait.
2 days before he died, his final podcast episode dropped. The show, not all hood. The vibe, heavy, real, personal. This wasn't casual storytelling. This was Malcolm baring his soul. He told a story, a simple conversation with spoken word artist Tamika Georgia Mee Harper. She challenged his show's title, Not All Hood, and you know what she said? Ain't nothing wrong with the hood. And that line, it hit him. Malcolm spiraled, reflected, and realized the media's been feeding us a one-sided lie for decades. They sold the hood as something broken. But the hood? It's where the real culture comes from.
The reason for the title is combating the narrative of black life, black culture that the media focuses on.
He wasn't trying to distance himself from the hood. He was calling out the system, the machine that exploits, twists, and ignores what it doesn't understand. He said it himself. The hood is what created American culture. And that wasn't just commentary. That was a bombshell, a call-out. And you know Hollywood hates that, but he kept going. He talked about how he used to side-eye the phrase black excellence because it always seemed tied to money and fame. But then, something changed. He learned about black soldiers being erased from Arlington Cemetery's records, and suddenly he saw it, just surviving as a black person in America. That's excellence.
We're not all hood. The black community is not a monolith. There's so many levels and lanes to the black community, and we wanted to have a space where we could acknowledge, discuss all of those lanes.
Just survival. Let that sink in. Knowing now that he died right after saying those words, it feels almost prophetic, like he knew the clock was ticking, like he had to speak before it was too late. And within 48 hours of sharing this vulnerable, powerful moment, he was gone. To so many of us, Malcolm Jamal Warner will always be Theo Huxtable, the lovable teen with the sweet smile, the goofy charm. He was that guy you grew up with, but now we're left wondering, who was the man behind Theo? Because his life, it wasn't always easy. It wasn't scandal-filled, no, but it was heavy, full of loss, pressure, and decisions most people never see. And yet through it all, he stayed grounded, humble, real.
It's difficult not to feel something, have some kind of emotional response to, what this person is going through.
let's talk about the elephant in the room. Bill Cosby. Malcolm didn't cause that mess, but it crashed into his life like a wrecking ball. Being part of The Cosby Show meant so much to American culture. But when the accusations against Cosby exploded, over 50 women coming forward, Malcolm was dragged into it by association. Cosby wasn't just his co-star, he was his mentor, the man who picked him out of hundreds of boys to play Theo, the one who guided him, shaped him, protected him. So when it all fell apart, Malcolm was torn, loyal to the man who changed his life, but heartbroken for the women whose stories could no longer be ignored.
My biggest feeling is I feel sad for just the way this whole just the way the whole story has come about.
His response? Not blind defense, but not betrayal either. In 2015, he said it best. It's painful to hear any woman talk about assault, but it's also painful to watch my friend and mentor go through this. He didn't excuse anything. He didn't dismiss the victims, but he also refused to become part of the media circus. He didn't want to simplify something that wasn't simple. And let's be real, that kind of honesty takes guts. The scandal didn't just destroy reputations, it destroyed The Cosby Show's legacy. And for Malcolm, that was the deepest wound of all.
After having had such a long path and long journey, you have something like this that you've got to contend with.
When reruns of The Cosby Show were pulled off air, it crushed him. To the world, it was just a show. But to Malcolm, it was a movement. It was proof that a black family could be successful, loving, relatable, and real on mainstream television. He once said, "In a few generations, the Huxtables will just be a fairy tale." That broke him, because for so many, the Huxtables were hope, representation. And you know what stung even worse? The hypocrisy. Movies by guys like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, men with their own scandals, still aired, but The Cosby Show, gone, scrubbed clean. And yes, it hit his pockets too. He said it himself. "It's literally taking money out of my pocket." This wasn't just cultural, it was personal. But then something shifted. He had a talk with Keisha Knight Pulliam. Remember little Rudy? She reminded him that the show did matter, that it already inspired so many, pushed kids to dream bigger, go to college, break cycles, and that changed everything. From mourning the loss of the show's legacy, he started celebrating what it already achieved. That one conversation helped him see past the headlines and focus on the impact. He didn't deny the pain, but he refused to let that be the end of the story. And here's where things get even more remarkable. You know how so many child stars go off the rails? Drugs, arrests, scandal after scandal? That never happened with Malcolm. Nothing. Not one meltdown. No mugshots. No wild headlines. Instead, he evolved with purpose. He didn't want to be Theo forever. He said at one point he hated even being called that. Not out of disrespect, but because he wanted to be seen as more. And guess what? He made it happen. He directed episodes of Kenan and Kel, released poetry and music, won a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance, and even got nominated for Best Spoken Word Album. He acted in everything from comedies like Malcolm and Eddie to hard-hitting dramas like Suits and American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing truth. And that truth? It came from the way he lived. Calm, focused, intentional. And that was no accident.
They were tired of me fighting with the writers.
His mom, Pamela, played a huge role. She managed his career early on and gave him structure, discipline. Even in the 80s, when child stars were spiraling, he was writing books like Theo and Me, Growing Up Okay, talking to kids about staying away from drugs and making smart choices. He wasn't trying to be cool, he was trying to be responsible. That says everything, and his work only got deeper with time. He tackled real issues, mass incarceration, racism, deportation, with art. His Grammy-nominated album, Hiding in Plain View, powerful. His short film, You Can't Hear Me, soul-shaking. He wasn't just an actor or musician, he was becoming a voice, one rooted in legacy, pain, and truth. But not all his struggles were public. Some of the most painful ones were deeply personal, and they shaped who he became. Let's talk about Michelle Thomas. Remember her? She played Justine, Theo's girlfriend on the show. In real life, they were a couple too. And even after they broke up in '94, they stayed incredibly close. Then in 1997, tragedy struck. Michelle was diagnosed with a rare stomach cancer. She died a year later at just 30 years old. And Malcolm, he was by her side when she passed. Imagine losing someone you loved, someone you practically grew up with at that age. He never made a media circus out of it. He mourned in silence. But that grief, it never left him.
As I remind myself that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile.
Years later, Malcolm's love life made headlines again, this time for all the wrong reasons. He and actress Regina King, yes, that Regina King, dated from 2011 to 2013. They were seen as this power couple, black excellence in human form. But then, boom. Out of nowhere, they broke up, and the gossip columns had a field day. Rumors swirled that he told her and her son to move out suddenly. Regina later claimed he dumped her on Valentine's Day, and then sent her flowers with a note that read, "I still love you." She threw them away. ouch. It was messy, painful, public. And for Malcolm, that was the turning point. He clammed up, stopped talking about his private life. No more posts, no interviews, just silence. Because he knew love isn't for the world, it's sacred. And when it's exposed, it breaks. But here's where everything starts connecting. People are now piecing it all together, and it's starting to look less like a coincidence and more like a pattern. Every time a Black artist starts telling the truth, the real, unfiltered, uncomfortable truth, something happens. They get silenced. Malcolm was entering a new era. Through his podcast, he was peeling back the layers, speaking directly to the community. No Hollywood gloss, no sugarcoating. He was creating space for realness, and that apparently was dangerous.
And we still think it's dope. Just like the music we're programmed to celebrate.
And then came that Meghan Markle moment. During an interview on The Tay Show, he was asked what it was like working with her on Suits. At first, he kept it light, called her cool and nice. But when they asked if he knew she was Black, his answer was chilling. The great thing is, she knew. Let that sink in. It wasn't a compliment, it was a statement. He was saying something loud, without yelling, that her proximity to whiteness wasn't an accident, that Hollywood preferred her that way. He didn't have to drag her, he just paused, let the silence speak, and it did.
It was cool. We didn't really have scenes together, so I'd see her, and she was really nice, really cool. My best friend, that's talking about Chris.
This is the same industry that lifted Malcolm up as a teenage star, then spent decades ignoring everything else he built. He was never tabloid bait, never messy, never desperate. He was thoughtful, brilliant, talented, respected, and still, when he died, crickets. No primetime tribute, no massive outpouring from Hollywood's elite, just silence. A few headlines, a couple tweets. For a man who helped shape an entire generation's childhood, that silence is loud. And now, as people go back and listen to his final podcast, they're realizing this wasn't just a goodbye, it was a roadmap, a trail of breadcrumbs. He spoke about cultural erasure, about Black soldiers whose names were wiped from history, about how the hood is where real American culture is born. He was redefining success, not as fame or riches, but as survival. And then, just like that, he was gone. Look, we're not saying there's a conspiracy, but we are saying this feels suspicious. Chadwick Boseman, Nipsey Hussle, Dave Chappelle, almost. And now Malcolm Jamal Warner? Each time a Black truth teller reaches their peak, something happens. Someone disappears. Someone gets silenced. Because Hollywood only loves you when you play the part. Smile for the cameras, follow the script. But Malcolm wasn't playing anymore. He had a message, and he left it with us. A message that challenged everything we've been told. A message that demanded we reframe what matters. He deserved more than a line in a blog. He deserved more than a whisper. He was a man with something to say. And it's time we listen before someone else vanishes. That's all for today. See you next time. Until then, goodbye.